Welcome back. We're starting out with 653. When Jupiter hidden a swan and laid Leda low on the lawn, pledged she, "Stick your neck in, but please do not peck in my box, for the lining is gone." There was a young lady from Teal who was raped in the lake by an eel. One morning at dawn she gave birth to a prawn, two crabs, and a two crabs and a small baby seal. Oh my. It threw me. It was so hilarious. As the oh my. Start again. As the rabbi was cutting the throat of the annual tribal scapegoat, said the beast, "I will cite you as a sodomite. You forget what we did on the boat." Not a very good reading by me, yours truly. A novelist from Tortilla Flats repeatedly buggered stray cats. The alley fence howls as he stirred up their bowels, enormously pleased the town rats. A broken-down harlot named Tups was heard to confess in her cups, "The height of my folly was fucking a collie, but I got a nice price for the pups." Pardon me. A vice both obscene and unsavory holds the mayor of Southampton in slavery. With blood-curdling howls he deflowers young owls, which he keeps in an underground aviary. Let's read it again. A vice both obscene and unsavory holds the mayor of Southampton in slavery. With blood-curdling howls he deflowers young owls, which he keeps in an underground aviary. It's a little bit better. A sheep herder out in Van Buren lost half of his flock with the murrain. Quoth the state veterinary, "You ought not to carry them live spirochets of yourn." Few words I don't understand. Moving on. There was a young artist named Victor who purchased a boa constrictor. He intended to sketch her, but decided, the lecher, to fuck her instead of depict her. Wise choice, Victor, wise choice. A promiscuous person named Willie had a dong that was simply a dilly. He would take on all mammals and was partial to camels, but they never could tolerate Willie. There was a young lady of Wolves Hill who sat herself down on a mole's hill. The resident mole stuck his head up her hole. The lady's all right, but the mole's ill. Oh my, perhaps she needed a good cleaning down below. There was a young man in Woods Hole who had an affair with a mole. Though a bit of a Nancy, he did like to fancy himself in a dominant role. Yes, well, it's not difficult to dominate a mole relative to the size of a male human. You've heard of the Duchess of York. She's twice been blessed by the stork. The Duke will fuck naught else but a duck, while the Duchess, she frequents the park. Pork. Maybe I should have pronounced York and stork like yak and stock. Moving on. Oh, well. A keeper in Hamburg's great zoo tried to have a young girl kangaroo, but she zipped up her pouch, and the rascal said, "Ouch! You've got to have Peter in you." Oh my, that makes me chuckle. A new chapter. This chapter's, let's see, 6, 7, 8, entitled Excrement. Oh, one of my favorite topics. The Raja of Afghanistan imported a Birmingham can, which he set as a throne on a great Buddha stone, but he crapped out of doors like a man. Oh my. Sounds like a very manly man. for shizzle my nizzle, to quote the prophet Snoop D-O double jizzle. There was a young lady named Ames who would play at the jolliest games. She was great fun to lay, for her rectum would play obligatos and call you bad names. Now that is a talent. They should have that on The View, or not The View. They should have that on, This is the Voice. Oh no, America's Got Talent. That's where this person, well, it was 1941. Perhaps we can create a time machine. She can travel forward in time and be on America's Got Talent. But I digress. A young lady who lived in Astoria took a fancy to Fletcher's Castoria. She partook of this drink with her ass in the sink. Now I ask you, ain't that foresight for ya? When a woman in strapless attire found her breasts working higher and higher, a guest with great feeling exclaimed, "How appealing! Do you mind if I piss in the fire?" Oh, I wonder if that was me. I seem to recall doing that once or thrice. Sir Reginald Barrington Bart went to the masked ball as a fart. He had painted his face like a more private place, and his voice made the dowagers start. Hello, dowager. There was a young fellow named Bart who strained every shit through a fart. Each tapered turd was the very last word in this deft and most intricate art. Pardon me. Splash. There was a young man of Bogart, the cheeks of whose ass were so fat that they had to be parted whenever he farted, and propped wide apart when he shat. Oh my, I think that might be the perfect one. Of course, it talks about pooping and farting in fat buttocks. Or is that buttocks like cactus cacti? A cabman who drove in Biarritz once frightened a fare into fits. When reproved for a fart, he said, "God bless me heart. When I break wind, I usually shits." There was a young fellow named Brewster who said to his wife as he goosed her, "It used to be grand, but just look at me hand. You ain't wiping as clean as you used to." Oh, well, you know. In good times and in bad, in sickness and in health, in clean buttocks, in clean bottom, and in dirty. A nasty young joker named Bruce used to greet all his friends with a goose, till it came to a stop in a handful of flop from some bowels that were terribly loose. Well, it happens, part of the human condition. Oh, here's a nice one. There was a fat lady of bride whose shoelaces once came untied. She didn't dare stoop for fear she would poop, and she cried and she cried and she cried. I'll bet she did. There was a young man of Bulgaria who once went to piss down an area. Said Mary to cook, "Oh, do come and look. Did you ever see anything hairier?" There was a young friar of Byhill who went up to shit on a high hill. When the abbot asked, was it a goodly deposit, he said, "Vox et praeterea nihil." Again, Latin. There must be somebody out there that knows that and is just laughing uncontrollably. There was an old bay of Calcutta who greased up his asshole with butter. Instead of the roar which came there before, came a soft, oleaginous mutter. Turning the page, bear with me. Oh, there we go. There once was a horse from Cape Verdes Verdes green in Espanol. There once was a horse from Cape Verdes who produced What? Let's start over. I am mispronouncing all over the place with this one. Here we go. There once was a horse from Cape Verdes who produced There once was a horse from Cape Verdes who produced most unusual turds. By the simplest means he'd eat corn and beans and make succotash for the birds. I don't like that one. A tourist who stopped at Capri was had by an old maid for tea. When she wiggled, he said, as he patted her head, "Ah, you're changing the T to a P." There was a young man named Cattell who knew psychophysics so well that each time he shit, he'd stop, measure it, its length and its breadth and its smell. We call him the poop scientist. Pardon me. Oh, something's repeating on me. An efficient young fellow named Cave said, "Think of the time that I save by avoiding vacations and sexy relations and taking a crap while I shave." Oh, it reminds me of Cheaper by the Dozens, the father. He was a time study man. My. There was a young fellow named Chartred who rubbed soap on his bung when it smarted. And to his surprise, he received a grand prize for the bubbles he blew when he farted. I know it should have been charted, smarted, and farted. I just thought I'd change it up. A nasty old bugger of Cheltenham once shit in his begs as he knelt in him, so he sold him at Ware to a gentleman there who didn't much like what he smelt in him. Well, I don't blame him. You notice how strong poop is when it's not in the water, just out in the air? I've noticed that too. There was a young fellow of Chislehurst who never could piss till he'd whistle first. One evening in June he lost track of the tune, dum-da-dee-dee, and his bladder burst. I like that one. Oh, there was a young fellow named Chivy, who, whenever he went to the privy, first solaced his mind, and then wiped his behind with some well-chosen pages of Livy. Said the Duke to the Duchess of Chiper, "Now can paper's grand for a wiper, but I don't give a damn for this newfangled camphor and meth." Goodness, do it again. That was terrible. Said the Duke to the Duchess of Chiper, "Now can paper's grand for a wiper, but I don't give a damn for this newfangled camphor and menthol this newfangled camphor and menthol impregnated paper." Let's move on. Oh, it's still going. Said the Duchess, "Well, yes, I dare say. Plain bumwad's all right in its way, but there's nothing so grand as some leaves or your hand when you're out in the woods for a day." Oh, I butchered the first half. My apologies. You'll never get that 38 seconds back. A young biochemist named Dan always followed his nose to the can. He judged people best by the urinal test as to race and to sex and to clan. There was a faith healer of Deal who said, "Although pain isn't real, when frightened by chance I unload in my pants, I dislike what I fancy I feel." There was an old person of Delhi, awoke with a pain in his belly, and to cure it... There was an old person of Delhi, awoke with a pain in his belly, and to cure it 'tis said he shit in his bed and the sheets were uncommonly smelly. There was a young lady of Dexter, whose husband exceedingly vexed her, for whenever they'd start he'd unfailingly fart with a blast that damn nearly unsexed her. My goodness, that was a powerful one. There was a young lady of Dorset who went to an underground closet. She screwed up her ass, but passed only some gas, and that wasn't tuppence worth, was it? Yes, I changed. Oh, my goodness. There was a young woman named Dotty who said as she sat on her potty, "It isn't polite to do this in sight, but then who am I to be snotty?" Oh, my. Actually, I like it when people watch. My neighbors, the dirty Miss Drews, stand on their doorstep and muse, and tie up their tresses while the dogs make their messes, as I am wiping my shoes. Well, move your shoes so they don't poop on them, my goodness. There was a young fellow of Ealing, devoid of all delicate feeling. When he read on the door, "Don't shit on the floor," he jumped up and shat on the ceiling. Yeah. Let it not be said that he can't take directions. The Marchesa de Excusador used to pee on the drawing room floor, for the can was so cold, and when one grows old, to be much alone is a bore. Let's do it again. That awful dialect. I don't even know what I was trying. It's like a poor man's Italian, somebody from the old country-ish. The Marchesa de Excusador used to pee on the drawing-room floor, for the can was so cold, and when one grows old, to be much alone is a bore. While watching some tragical farces, the audience had a catharsis. Instead of real tears, they wept with their rears, which proves that catharsis my arses. That's so silly. Turning the page. Oh. There was a young lady of Fismees who amazingly voided 4 streams. A friend poked around, and a fly button found, wedged tightly in one of her seams. Oh, that explains that. I thought, oh my goodness, 4 holes? Actually 5 if you count the poop chute. There was a young lady from France, supposed to play at a dance. She ate a banana and played the piano, and music came out of her pants. Now that's talent. There was a young lady of Gat, who never could sit, but she shat. Oh, the seat of her drawers was a chamber of horrors, and they felt even fouler than that. There once was a fellow named Glance, who on entering a toilet in France was in such a heat to paper the seat, he shit right into his pants. Well, that's what happens when you're in a hurry. Alas for a preacher named Hoke, whose shit was all stuck in his poke. He farted a blast that left hearers aghast, but nothing emerged but some smoke. A professor who taught at Hollyoak had a bung like a red artichoke. She was greatly annoyed that each ripe hemorrhoid always quivered whenever she spoke. Good luck getting through a lecture with that condition. There once was a builder named Howell. No, not Mr. Howell from Gilligan's Island. Focus, pay attention. There once was a builder named Howell, who had a remarkable bowel. He built him a building of brickwork and gilding, using, what do you think, on his trowel. That illustrious, I don't know why I'm lisping. That illustrious author, Dean Howells, had a terrible time with his bowels. His wife, so they say, cleaned them out every day with special elongated trowels. Here's to the state of Iowa, whose soil is soft and rich. We need no turd from your beautiful bird, you red-headed son of a bitch. There was a young man from Kilbride who fell in a shithouse and died. His heartbroken brother fell into another, and now they're interred side by side. Shit happens, and then you fall into it and die.
Oh, the page is so difficult to turn. It's very challenging. Yes, I'm reading from an actual book, a book, paper and everything.
There was a young girl of La Plata who was widely renowned as a farter. Her deafening reports at the Argentine sports made her much in demand as a starter.
I wonder if she stood on her head when they said, "Get ready for the race."
Q. Flaccus in his third Liber, or is it Liber? Oh, Q. Flaccus in his third Liber. The Romans have no wood pulp fiber. A crapulent quorum will squat in the forum and heave dirty stones in the Tiber. That's way beyond my mental acumen. There was a young man of Loch Leven who went for a walk about 7. He fell into a pit that was brimful of shit, and now the poor bugger's in heaven. Oh, poor thing. An old GI custom long-rooted is to enter fledgling... Pardon me, is my phone annoying me. An old GI custom long-rooted is to entering fledglings well-suited. In every latrine a bright sign is seen. Stand close, the next guy may be barefooted. Oh, that makes sense. Don't pee on your neighbor's foot. Oh, how many times have you got the spray when you're in a bar and you're peeing the stand-up urinals? Ugh. Awful. Awful. Makes you want to wear all-weather boots or something when you go out anywhere. What am I doing? There was a young Georgian named Lind who'd never in all his life sinned, for whenever he'd start, he'd be jarred by a fart, and his semen was gone with the wind. Oh, my. Poor fellow. There was a young man named McBride who could fart whenever he tried. In a contest he blew 2002 and then shit and was disqualified. Well, that hardly seems fair. Perhaps he can invest in a butt plug, for the next contest. There was a young man named McPhee who was stung in the balls by a... Oh, my goodness. Let me redo this. You would think I would have the common sense to turn down the offensive. These phones are so annoying. Blessing and a curse. There was a young man named McPhee who was stung in the balls by a bee. He made oodles of money by oozing pure honey every time he attempted to pee. Goodness, I didn't know you could monetize things like that. There was a young girl of Machias whose bloomers were cut on the bias, with an opening behind to let out... They're trying to rhyme behind with wind. With an opening behind to let out the wind and to let the boys in once or twice. Let's start from the top. This is funny now that I know what the hell I'm reading. There was a young girl of Machias whose bloomers were cut on the bias, with an opening behind to let out the wind and to let the boys in once or twice. I know it's a stretch, but it's clever. There was a young fellow named Malcolm who dusted his asshole with talcum. He'd always use it every time that he shit and found the sensation right welcome. There was an old man of Madrid who went to an auction to bid. In the first lot they sold was an ancient commode, and my God, when they lifted the lid... Pardon me. I know it's rude. Should have covered my mouth, but I'm holding the book. There was a young Royal Marine who tried to fart, "God save the Queen." When he reached the soprano, out came the guano, and his breeches weren't fit to be seen. There is a professor named Martin, from whom I'm about to be partin', and on my way out, he may hear me shout, "It's your face I'd sure like to fart in." Have a sip of water. A movement once rose amongst the masses to travel about with bare asses. At true lovers' parting, the best form was farting with buttocks immersed in molasses. Makes sense to me. A gay young blade from Milano was Count Galeazzo Ciano. Safe from the wars, he found that his drawers contained rich deposits of guano. There once was a lady named Mura, whose mind was so frightfully pure that she fainted away at a friend's house one day when she saw some canary manure. Oh, goodness. One more page. There was a young lady of Newcastle who wrapped up a turd in a parcel and sent it to a relation with this invitation, "It has just come out hot from me arsehole." There was an old scholar named Nick who wrote Latin and Greek with his prick. He peed a paean? Oh, is it paeon? I'm too lazy to look it up. He peed a paeon in the snow by a John in script more than 3 inches thick. Sorry, I ruined that. An eminent preacher named Nixon used to fart as he said benediction. The shy flock would smile as they trooped down the aisle. "The arse on our parson needs fixin'." I know you're all thinking Tricky Dick. Richard Milhouse. "I'm not a crook." Nixon. Oh, my home state. Here we go. There was a young girl in Ohio whose baptismal name was Maria. She would put on airs and pee on the stairs if she thought that no one was nigh her. There was a young lady of Pinner who dreamt that her lover was in her. Let's do it again. There was a young lady of Pinner who dreamt that her lover was in her. This excited her heart, so she let a great fart and shit out her yesterday's dinner. I like that. Let's end on that one. That was number 729. Thank you for listening.